Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to be showing you how to set up your Toast integration in Wallboard. But first, what we need to show you is how you actually add Wallboard as an integration in Toast. So let's get started by going down to integrations. And once we're here, we're going to go to browse and purchase integrations. This is Toast's integration or app store where you can add Wallboard. If you aren't sure how to do this or you haven't done this already, please reach out to your Toast representative and they can help you with this. Once you've done that though, then go to configure integrations. And once you've done that, we're then going to need to set what is called the group ID and the location ID. These can be any values, but just go ahead and put something random or something that's not super obvious in here. Again, these will have to match exactly what we have in Wallboard at a later step. So please remember these. You can always change them later if you need to. Now that we've added Wallboard as an integration in Toast, it's now time to add Toast as an integration in Wallboard. To do that, we add what is called a data source, and this is what allows us to pull in all the menu data from Toast. So to do this, we're going to go ahead to the left-hand side here, click on Settings, and then Data Sources. From here, click on the red plus button, and then Toast. Now, this is where you input your location and group ID that we previously mentioned, or at least that we set up in Toast. So to get started, you'll go ahead and start putting in your menu name here. And under Resource, you can select Restaurant Menu and Stock Flatten. This is very important, so make sure you select this option. And from here, it's very important that this information matches with what you put in Toast. In this case, I'm just going to use some example data, so I'm just going to put this here, but make sure you put in your information in these boxes. From here, under frequency, this is how often we're going to look to Toast in order to update the menu. So for example, if our price changes or something goes out of stock, we're going to be looking every 3,600 seconds. In this example, I want it to be a little quicker. I want it to be within 5 minutes. So I'll set this refresh time to 300 seconds. Once I've done that, we're also going to press Cache External Sources, and then we're going to press Save. Now, if you give it 30 to 45 seconds, you will notice that these boxes should fill up here, and the error counter should remain at 0. This means that your menu has been successfully added. If you see that the error count is 1, make sure that you've put in the correct group and location ID that you put into Toast. So it should look something like this once you're complete. So once we've added our Toast data source into Wallboard, it's now time to create our menu and our content designer. So to do this from the home page or even from the data sources menu we were just in, all you got to do is click on Contents. And then from here, you're going to click on the plus icon, followed by Create Content. You can call this whatever you want. I'm just going to say that this is my Toast menu. And ideally for a resolution, you should probably pick 1920 by 1080, unless, of course, your menu is in portrait, which you can select this option here. I'm going to choose this one for now and select Create and Open. So give it a few seconds and it will take you into our designer. So first things first, as we get into here, probably the most important thing that we have to do is we have to lay out the menu. Meaning that if you have a section of your menu that is meant for entrees, sides, or maybe the lunch specials, we need to section out the menu so that we can route those items to those locations. So to get started, you could either create the background for your menu as well as your headers for like your entree, sides, etc. In this case, though, I'll actually bring in an image, which will act as the background of my menu that already includes these titles. So I'm just going to drag in our image widget here. Now, you can either drag it full screen here, or you can just go down the left-hand side under the main properties of the image widget. And then once you've done that, go ahead and click on Source, click on the plus icon, click Upload, and now we can upload something from our PC. So I'm just going to upload my background here. Click OK, and choose File. Here we go. Now that we have our background in place, it's now time to start creating our zones where we want our Toast items to go. So in this case, our zones are going to revolve around entrees, sides, and lunch specials. These should also correspond with your menu groups within Toast. We'll explain more about that later. So to create these zones, Go down to apps. If you don't see anything under here, just go ahead and click the down arrow and then drag in the menu board app. From there, let's create our first zone. Now you could create other zones for your other sections here, which we will have to do. You can do this by hitting Control C and Control V. And then you can see that, of course, I can, just drag this zone down here and resize it. However, I'm going to do some styling up here on this first section, and I don't want to have to redo that for every single zone. So I'm going to copy and paste them later so those settings are already applied. So to start inputting our Toast items into this section, let's go into Toast so that I can explain in a little bit more detail of how we route items to these zones. Once in Toast, go to the left-hand side here, click on Menus, and then Edit Menus. The first important thing is we need to remember what menu we're actually pulling from. In this case, I'm pulling from Demo Restaurant. I'm going to go ahead and copy this because I'll need this later. The next and most important thing is the menu groups. These are the zones that we're creating on our menu and is the only way items will be routed to those zones. There are other options, but this is the easiest. So you'll see we have groups for entrees, lunch specials, and sides. Let's focus on entrees for right now. And if I scroll down, you can see here's all my items. So let's go now back into our designer. And first, what we'll do, and before I actually start inputting any information here, so I can see my items when they're populated because my background is black, I need to scroll down and I need to go to the name settings and I'm going to change the font color to white. Now, of course, if your background was white, you could just leave it be because the default color is black. I'm going to do the same thing for the price. And you could do this for the description too if you're bringing that in. In this case, I'm not. The next thing is we need to decide what style we want our table to be in, meaning what information do we want to bring in from Toast. Probably the most common is name and price in one row, but sometimes people want to bring in the name, price, and description, which is this option here. I'm just going to do name and price in one row. The next thing that you can do is go ahead and scroll up to the top and click on My Data Set. And click on this box here, and then we'll select our Toast menu data source that we added. It should have the same name that you gave it. Then we're going to select Items, and we're not going to select anything else and press Save. You can already see that we now have some items populated in this zone. However, if we go back to Toast, we can see that there's actually a lot more items than what we're seeing here. It appears that we're only seeing maybe the first 4 or 5 entries. To see the rest of these items, we now need to go into our Properties panel, and we need to start filtering based on the parameters that we discussed earlier in Toast. Right now, we're just looking at our full Toast menu. So under Menu Name, I'm going to go ahead and paste in the menu name that I referenced earlier. And then underneath Menu Group Name, this is where I'll put in Entrees. Now that we've got everything synced up, and yes, it still looks the same, we now need to extend this list. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down, and you'll see table row and column. If I put 15 here, it's then going to display as many items as it can that are in that group. Now, there aren't 15 items within that menu group, so what this means is if you ever add items, it will just go ahead and place them at the bottom of the list here. That way, you don't have to keep coming into the designer and your menu is synced up with Toast, so it's automated in that way. Now, we may want to apply some additional styling changes. So to do this, I can either move around this Toast widget or app in this case, and I can also use my arrow keys. So I'm going to do that. And I'm just going to resize this just a little bit so it's aligned. Perfect. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to increase the font size. So let's go ahead and scroll down under the name settings, and I'm going to increase this to 30. You can drag the slider or again use your arrow keys. I'll also just move this up again. And I'm going to do the same thing for price. We'll make that size 30. Now, I also want to change what font I'm using. So you can use custom fonts in Wallboard. You just have to click this blue plus icon and you'll upload a custom font into our file manager, almost just like we did with that background image. So under font family, let's go ahead and I'll select a font I added. Of course, if you added a custom font, you'll find it under custom. And then I'll do the same thing for price. Now, in this case, I actually want to bold the price so that it's more visible. And I also want to add the dollar symbol. So if you see here, there's a add text before option where I can put a dollar sign. And if you wanted there to be a little bit more spacing, you could add space before, just like so. Now, in this case, we did leave enough space for additional items, but if you didn't necessarily like the spacing of the items and you thought that it was too close together, you can scroll all the way to the bottom here and you'll see where we have some additional options here. Row distance is probably what you'll use the most because that just adds or increases the spacing. I'm just going to leave it at 0 in this case because I want to leave as much room as possible when we add new items. So now that we've done this, let's go ahead and copy and paste these different apps for our sides and lunch specials, and you'll see just how easy it is. So hit Control C, Control V. Now, a little trick you can use is if you hit Shift and the left arrow key, it will align it perfectly, and then you can just hold the down arrow and it will move it very quickly. There we go. Of course, again, you could just drag it in the place you want it to go. From here, I'm going to go ahead and shrink down this a little bit. And we're going to scroll up here to the top, and how we route our sides to this new zone we created. Instead of putting the menu group entrees, we're just going to replace that with sides. And there we go. Now, one thing you'll notice is that there's actually too many items in this zone. Before we discuss this, I'm going to leave this like so. We're going to create the zone for lunch specials, but I want to come back to this. So we'll do the same thing here for entrees. I'll just Control C, Control V. Again, Shift left. Now it's perfectly aligned, and I can use my arrow keys along with the Shift button to quickly move it around. And there we go. So I'm now just going to adjust my zone a little bit here, and we're just going to put lunch specials here. There we go. Now let's come back to sides in this case. The last thing that we want to mention is you can't always necessarily have your Toast menu organized exactly how you want, or your Toast instance, I should say. So let me quickly open up Toast here. Let's get out of entrees and let's go into sides. Now, let's say in this case, I actually only want to display Brussels sprouts, French fries, mac and cheese, onion rings, and coleslaw. I don't want to include green beans or baked beans. Let's say we temporarily pulled them from the menu. What I can do is if you click into these options here, for example, let's say coleslaw, and scroll down, you'll see that there's a item tag option. Now for this is how we can further delineate what will show in a zone. So if you don't want to overcomplicate things, you can start with this from the beginning, meaning you don't even have to look at the menu group or input that field. You basically just have to put in your menu name and then your tag, and then that's it. So in this case, let's say I have a sides tag. Again, you could just add it like so by, clicking create tag, and it would add it like you see here. Now, when you do this, so like let me just remove this and create the tag. There will be a publish option up here at the top that you will have to press. So if I press save here, give it a second, and you'll see the publish now option. So go ahead and click that. Now, once you've done that, it may take Wallboard, because we set the refresh time to 300 seconds. It may take up to 5 minutes to pull in those changes. If you want it to be more immediate, you can do this manually through Wallboard. To do this, I would suggest just having a different tab open, and you can hit this refresh icon, and that will go ahead and manually force it. But before you see that change, you've got to click the refresh icon up here as well. Now what we can do, instead of just looking at the menu group sides, we can put this as well if we want to, but to make it simpler, I'm just going to go here to item tags, and I'm going to input sides. And there we go. This is also used if a lot of times, let's say you had vegan options on your menu. If let's say those are sorted in different, like you have vegan entrees, vegan sides, and you wanted to create like a vegan section over here on the right, those may be sorted into different groups in Toast. So tags are another good way in order to create a zone for certain items that may pull from certain groups within Toast, or different groups in this use case. So now that we've created our menu, I'm just going to further define these zones and make sure they don't overlap with anything. and it's fully set up and automated. So now as you add and remove items from Toast, just make sure that, of course, you have them in the right menu groups or you've added or removed the tag that you've inputted over here in the properties. But once you've done that, your Toast menu will now be automated in Wallboard. So let us know if you have any questions. I hope that helps, but that's how you automate your menu with our Toast integration.